As I'm wont to do, I was watching all the content coming out through Diablo 4, and I just saw my boy Dieoxide recently put up a video basically saving y'all mouse and keyboard players, because apparently you all can't do something that controller players do naturally, and Di had recently discovered a way of being able to replicate it on mouse and keyboard. So in his video here, he's detailing how he's able to simultaneously cast two different skills. I think they're Pen Shot and Barrage. Sorry, I'm not a rogue main. But what he's highlighting here is the fact that if you swap over one of your input skills to shift as opposed to like right mouse or left mouse click, you're able to skill weave naturally. That's what's happening right here. You'll see that basically both skills are happening simultaneously. And he goes on to explain the fact that it goes down to the lowest breakpoint of whatever the slowest skill is. I highly recommend checking out the video. I'll go ahead and link to it down below. I have never played on mouse and keyboard, and I just found out that apparently y'all have been the second-class citizens of Diablo 4 this entire time. And not only that, I think you all have a maximum of 2 auto-weaving skills that you can do, and you would have to manually weave every other skill. But it turns out, way back in the day, while pushing like a bunch of World Forest 99s in D2 and PD2, I developed carpal tunnel. And even since the way back secret beta, I've only ever played Diablo 4 on controller. So much so that when people show up to my stream, they think that I'm playing on Xbox. When in reality, I play on PC, but with an Xbox controller, because I just can't do the inputs on mouse and keyboard. Go ahead and check out his video. He put a bunch of hours into like specifically researching different skills that work well with this combination on the rogue class itself. I need to bring y'all up to speed, because apparently you all haven't been skill weaving, or at least you haven't been efficiently skill weaving. And on top of that, the controller players have been able to skill weave 4 and 5 skills simultaneously. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you real quick what the end result of that looks like, and then break down what's happening, because this is something that plays into attack animations, breakpoints, attack speed breakpoints. And on top of that, the fact that while we've made amazing strides in coming to understand what the attack speed breakpoints for spamming a skill is, there are a ton of other flags in a skill's animation that have only barely been looked into. And I think it's because the majority of people aren't playing on controller that are tryhards. But let me break it down. Now that we've hit the inflection point, you'll notice 3 different skills all occurring simultaneously. You'll see that there is Blood Lance, Blood Wave, and Corpse Tendrils. You'll see the Corpse Tendrils shoot out once a second, the little giant spider arms of this weird vine thing coming around. Then you'll see the multiple overlapping Blood Waves and the fact that I'm perpetually firing off Blood Lance. And if I were to bring my controller up to the screen, you'll see that I'm just holding down right trigger, left trigger, and then even though it's my right bumper, I actually have that tied to this paddle back here. And I'm simultaneously casting all 3 of these skills at the fastest speed physically possible. And what this is skill weaving. So what is the typical problem on mouse and keyboard? Well, as you can see, I have Blood Lance and I have Corpse Tendrils assigned to left and right click. So I'm going to click both of them simultaneously. I'm just going to hold them down. I'm going to cast Corpse Tendrils and I'm going to cast Blood Lance. And you'll notice that I'm no longer casting Corpse Tendrils, or at least not automatically. In fact, I would have to spam click my right mouse button to be able to cast it whenever it comes off of cooldown. And while this is perfectly fine, while holding down left click for this long and then holding and then permanently spamming right click, my hand will run out of energy very, very quickly and it'll start to hurt. That's the carpal tunnel, right? But what's actually occurring here is the fact that you cannot simultaneously buffer both of these inputs. You can't auto weave them. And what do I mean by weave? Well, if you look at the animation of Blood Lance, if you like really watch it in slow-mo here, my axe is going to come down and then my axe comes back to resting. If you also look at the animation of Corpse Tendrils, you notice that the axe comes out, I do this little hand pull motion, and then it goes back, right? Those are 2 full animations. If I instead hold down Blood Lance and then spam click Corpse Tendrils, you'll notice that if you pay very close attention, but while I start the animation of both of them in between, I basically cut them in half. This becomes even more obvious when I cast my Blood Wave. So Blood Wave has this whole super energetic and very dramatic animation. I throw my hands up and I throw my hands out, and that's Blood Wave. I'm going to hold down Blood Lance and I'm going to cast Blood Wave. Really pay attention to what my animation does here. My hands go up, and basically as they're coming down, the axe comes out to immediately cast Blood Lance again, right? If you take a look, you basically don't get the other half of the animation of Blood Wave. What is happening? Well, we're interrupting the animation. We would typically refer to as like an interrupt flag. It's basically the moment into an animation when you're able to interrupt it with a different animation. This is something that I talked about all the way back. I think it was in season 1. It was when we were first arguing about the difference between a two-handed sword and a scythe on the Necromancer. And I started getting kind of deep into animation breakpoints, attack speed breakpoints, and what it meant to interrupt these things differently. But the TLDR from that point is spamming a skill is not actually the fastest way of casting a skill. If you interrupt the animation with another skill input, you will then cast that skill sooner into your total animation. And then if you've already buffered a skill by holding down the skill button, you will then interrupt that second skill's animation with this one. And while you will do 3 animations worth of like time, right? You'll do the 3 different skills. Because you're interrupting the first 2 at the interrupt flag of the animation, you basically shave off time. So you actually cast those 2 blood lances faster than if you were just holding down this skill. Like if you were to measure how long it takes from the animation to start until you do damage, and then for the second animation to start, and then the second blood lance to do damage, it would happen faster than if you were just holding it down. That's skill weaving. And Dieoxide found out that you're able to skill weave if you tie your input to the shift key. Because as you can see right here, the shift key is permanently doing the input. But the weird thing about it, as opposed to it being any of the number keys or your left or right mouse button, but as long as you're holding down shift while you're doing a mouse input, it will auto weave these 2 things. I'm not doing anything different other than literally just holding down shift and literally just holding down the left mouse button. But remember when I showed off what the controller can do? The controller can do this with 3, 4, even 5 skills simultaneously, if at least one of them is a normal skill and the other ones are cooldowns. But on top of that, I can do 3 skills simultaneously and weave in a 4th skill of my choosing, and you effectively won't even see it. So I'm going to start by just holding down 3 different inputs and weave together my blood lance, my blood wave, and my corpse tendrils. And then once enough blood orbs are on the screen where I hit maximum capacity, basically blood wave will come immediately off of cooldown and we'll start weaving all 3 together. And as you can see, you basically see the hands go up every once in a while in the blood lance animation, but you've stopped seeing the corpse tendrils animation in its entirety. That one is able to be interrupted super early. Now what I'm going to do is get my Flesh Eater procs. If you check out my buff bar, you'll see them start to stack up. Oh, there's one of them. Oh, there's another one of them. If you're looking for what the animation is, the Necromancer will throw their right fist up in the air and kind of like do like a grasp movement. I'll do it again. Oh, you almost saw it. And as you can see, I've gotten all 5 of my stacks. I've now activated Flesh Eater. The thing that's funny about what I was just doing is I didn't even tell you I've been casting Blight the entire time too. Blight is when I'm going to shoot out my right arm and a little bolt will come out of it. It's kind of hard to see with all the blood waves, but see if you can pick up on it. Oh, there you go. That one was kind of clean. If I do it before a blood wave comes out, it's actually a little bit easier to see it. But basically, I can weave in my Blight and my Corpse Explosion while holding down all 3 of these buttons and never stop casting Blood Lance or Blood Wave or Corpse Tendrils. And I just didn't know mouse and keyboard couldn't do this. In fact, I recently put out a video about Blood Lance, and in that Blood Lance video, I was talking about the new tech with Blood Lance. And what I was trying to teach people was that by holding down Blood Lance and Corpse Tendrils simultaneously, since you reset the cooldown automatically on a really big pack, you would basically be able to buffer a bunch of Corpse Tendrils procs, and then as they were all firing off and generating blood orbs, the blood lances that you were naturally casting would then eat them all up as they came out, so that you would never hit the blood orb limit. And people in my comments were very confused. They had no idea how I was doing this, because apparently those people in my comments weren't on controller. But yeah, there you go. Apparently controller has been king of this game this entire time, if only because there's no way for you to approach this level of efficiency unless you are quite literally spamming all of the skills that you would want to weave on cooldown perpetually. And obviously people are able to physically do that, right? Like there are people who probably didn't even know they were doing it, or at least if they did know they were doing it, they didn't realize that other people on mouse and keyboard just like weren't able to accomplish this thing. But on top of that, you all haven't been able to auto weave and auto buffer these skills. You have to spam them. But these old millennial wrists, they just can't do that anymore. Now, I do want to let you know real quick, it's not all doom and gloom for you mouse and keyboard players. You all actually have like a ton of benefits that you might not even be aware of. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop one right in here. Did you know that you could just cast skills while moving without stopping? Well, at least on the Necromancer and certain skills across the other classes, but let me go ahead and show you that example. Now, if you never knew this, when you fire off a skill with a projectile, you can't move after. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire off Blight and then start spamming to move. And if you pay attention, basically, I don't start moving until the Blight has fully cast, right? I can't interrupt the animation until the Blight is already out of my hand there. Now, luckily, I have a lot of attack speed, but if I'm walking and I do the input, you'll notice that my character stops in its entirety to cast the Blight. Well, what if I told you, for whatever reason, Blood Surge actually doesn't care about that and can just be cast while you're running? Now, you do have to do something called WASD movement. It was the addition to the game recently, where by doing WASD inputs, you can do perpetual buffered movement inputs. And for whatever reason, Blood Surge does not have this penalty for attempting to move while cast. So that's Blight. I'm not doing anything different. I'm still using WASD movement, but this is Blight and this is Blood Surge. Now, the issue here is that you actually naturally do this on controller. Isn't that kind of ridiculous? And that's because WASD movement is just replicating my thumbstick inputs. Now, here's the issue, though. You can't do this little tech right here, if you have a target. For whatever reason, if you actually have a target, like if I have this target here, you'll notice that I stop moving to cast on them. And the issue with this is that on a controller, unless I'm literally moving in the direction of no monsters, I can't choose to not have a target. So here I'm going to try to do it. And whenever there's no monsters in front of me, I can do it. But obviously that doesn't help, right? Like I'm running away from all these monsters. But the moment that I have targets, I can no longer do it. Whereas if I'm on WASD movement the entire time, because I can actually move my mouse to an area that doesn't have any monsters on it, I can actually do my WASD movement and continue to move. And very specifically for the Blood Surge Necromancer, just in case you are aware of the current meta of Blood Surge Necromancer. Current Blood Surge Necromancer will consume corpses, which will generate blood orbs. So you're able to move around and pick up these blood orbs while actively casting Blood Surge, which basically makes mouse and keyboard Blood Surge Necromancer anywhere between like 10 to 50% more efficient at clearing out packs in the pit than controller. And while I was like very aware of this difference because it was something that was giving controller players both a very slight edge until mouse and keyboard players discovered WASD movement, and then basically it was nearly impossible to keep up with Blood Surge players on mouse and keyboard if you were somebody who was playing on controller. But again, shouts to Dieoxide not only for like stumbling upon this himself, but getting that word out there, because I think a lot of mouse and keyboard players are going to significantly benefit from this type of optimization if they haven't been already. Again, his video is in the description down below. I highly recommend checking it out. He just put it out today, so you don't want to miss out on anything. But on top of that, I wanted to get this word out there because apparently console players have been enjoying this the entire time, and y'all could be doing it too. Just go ahead and grab yourself like an Xbox controller. I was originally using an Xbox 360 controller. No joke, it's like my favorite controller to play with on a PC. Sadly, it just eventually wore down. But if y'all haven't already, consider picking up a controller and trying out Diablo 4. It's pretty legit. It's so much easier on the hands. You can kind of just like sit back and relax while you play. If you want to get real sweaty, you hop straight back onto mouse and keyboard because it is just strictly better for like high intensity, high precision movement, and like the majority of skills work better on it, etc. But if you're okay with having like a really crappy teleport or leap or inexorable reaper or like terrible evade movement or metamorphosis, but get to enjoy skill weaving, welcome to the controller. We'd love to have you. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that this helps you out. Enjoy the game better. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one.